When they cuffed me, Adrianne Vale didn't flinch. My father did, but only to raise his champagne. I'm the one who exposed her. He said, his voice slicing through the press cameras like a blade. The ballroom stilled. Faces turned toward me, some pitying, most hungry. To them, I was a scandal, a 38-year-old intelligence officer accused of turning against her own country. To me, I was simply done being his daughter. He'd built his legacy on loyalty and medals. I'd built mine on truth he couldn't bury. The chandeliers burned white above the Washington Athenaeum, refracting over silver and glass. The orchestra faltered, strings trembling like nerves. My heels clicked once across the marble, a sound sharp enough to remind everyone I was still standing. When the announcer's voice broke through the static Commander Adrianne Vale, it was met by silence that hummed louder than applause. Two men in tailored suits approached, shadows against the golden light. "Commander Vale, you're under arrest for high treason." Every whisper died. Wine glasses froze in midair. The perfume of the evening soured into fear. My uniform still bore the Navy insignia, gold against midnight blue, the same color as the ocean that had taken my brother years ago. The cuffs clicked around my wrists like punctuation marks in a story I hadn't finished writing. And then came his voice again. "I'm the one who reported her." My father repeated, lifting his glass toward the cameras, his grin sharp and ceremonial. A storm of flashes followed, capturing betrayal at its most photogenic. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a tear. I just looked at the man who'd taught me to stand for the flag and realized he'd never stood for me. As they led me away, someone in the crowd hissed, "Traitor." But down the long marble corridor, I heard another sound, boots striking in perfect rhythm. A SEAL unit. My old team. The rhythm grew louder, closer, until a voice called out from behind the line of agents. "Stand down, Admiral, we're here." The room erupted. The air cracked open. Humiliation wasn't defeat. It was ignition. And that night, beneath the cold marble arch of Washington's oldest hall, I learned that the sky salutes back when you finally stop bowing. Behind me, my father's laughter floated through the doorway, quiet, satisfied, familiar. It wasn't the first time he'd enjoyed watching me fall. The smell of salt and diesel still clings to my memories of that old house by Norfolk Harbor, the one with the warped deck, and the view of ships coming home that never did. His medals hung crookedly above the mantel, their ribbons faded and edges dull. I was 16 then, barefoot, trying to tie a line around the cleat on his fishing boat. My fingers slipped rope-burning skin. "You'll never make it in the Navy if you can't tie a knot," he snapped. He wasn't teaching me seamanship, he was teaching me to endure humiliation. Every lesson ended with a bruise on the heart. In 1995, when his command was investigated for falsifying mission logs, I heard him shouting through the study door. "They're making me the scapegoat." His voice cracked under whiskey and rage. The newspaper he threw hit the wall and slid down like a spent shell casing. One of his medals clattered to the floor. That sound followed me for years. At my Annapolis graduation, the seat marked "Family" stayed empty. My mother sent a photo later, just that chair and a note. He watched from the car. I told myself he couldn't face the crowd. The truth was simpler, he couldn't face my success. When I joined Naval Intelligence, he stopped calling me kiddo. He started calling me officer. By the time I made commander, he looked at me like I'd stolen something from him. "You think that uniform makes you better than me?" "No," I said. Just honest. That was the night we stopped being family. He measured every rise of mine as another fall of his. I didn't realize he'd one day try to even the score. Years later, when the investigation into defense contracts began, I found my name leaked in the same report that had once destroyed his career. The story read like revenge disguised as justice. And as the world watched me fall, I recognized the echo. The hand that once taught me to salute was the same one tightening the cuffs. The stranger leaned forward, buying him another drink. "Let me help you tell your side," he said, voice smooth, rehearsed, dangerous in its calm. My father, Admiral Nathan Vale, wanted so badly to be believed again that he never noticed the trap forming behind those sympathetic eyes. I wouldn't learn until months later that the man was a contractor from Ardent Systems, a defense firm locked in quiet war with naval intelligence, and I was the obstacle standing between them and $1 billion contract. One night when the rain came sideways off the Potomac, I drove past my father's house. The porch light glared through the storm, cutting a pale circle into the dark. Through the curtains, I saw him pacing, gesturing, animated with a purpose I hadn't seen in years. "Yes, I have access," he said into the phone, his back rigid. "She trusts me. She tells me things. I serve too." Pride sharpened his voice, the same tone he'd used when I was a child, learning knots on that pier in Norfolk. I didn't get out of the car. I just sat there until the rain blurred him into a shadow. Some wars, I realized, begin at home long before the first shot is fired. The next morning, an email waited in my secure inbox, no subject, no sender, just a single attachment. I opened it without hesitation. That was the moment the gears began to close. By noon, I was walking beneath the gunmetal rain of Washington, D.C., my reflection trailing across the marble floors of the Pentagon. A summons awaited the kind that doesn't request it commands. A lieutenant handed me a sealed envelope stamped, "For your eyes only." Inside, an outgoing transmission of classified coordinates from a restricted defense route bearing my encrypted signature. For a second, the world lost sound. Someone had forged me, built a perfect digital ghost in my name. Hours later, the interrogation room smelled of metal and recycled air. Two agents sat across the table, faces carved from fatigue. Commander Vale, one said quietly, "Your father has already given testimony." The sentence hollowed the room. What exactly did he say? That you exceeded clearance, concealed data, acted independently. They slid the document across his trembling signature beneath the words, the first written proof that Admiral Nathan Vale had turned his own daughter into an enemy of the state. And as I left, Lieutenant Sarah Quinn, one of my subordinates, saluted stiffly. "I only told them what I found, ma'am." The storm outside finally reached me. The irony burned deep. In the mirrored walls of the Pentagon elevator, my own reflection stared back, jaw-locked, uniform, crisp eyes hollow. A uniform can shield you from enemies, but never from your own blood. That night in my quarters overlooking Arlington Harbor, the phone rang. My mother's voice trembled through the static. "Your father's on TV again, Adrianne." Her breath caught. "He says, you've shamed the flag." Outside, the tide licked against the seawall in rhythm with my pulse. I whispered I'd rather drown in truth than breathe his kind of honor. When I hung up, another message blinked on my secure terminal. No subject, no sender. Just 6 words. "They're watching the wrong terminal, E. Graves. Commander Ethan Graves, my former operations chief." If his name appeared, it meant the silence was cracking. Hours later, my father sat beneath studio lights, smiling for America. The network called it a conversation about duty. The man beside him wore the discreet silver tie pin of Ardent Systems. "No one stands above the flag," my father declared. Not even my daughter. He didn't look at the camera. He didn't need to. He'd already found his audience applause, not truth. By dawn, the story spread like oil on water. A defense blog claimed I faced indictment. My inbox flooded with press inquiries, some calling me traitor, others fallen officer. My apartment became a cage of shutter clicks. I cut the lights and sat in darkness, the television's glow, my only company. Sources allege Commander Vale compromised multiple defense contracts, the anchor said. Then a knock. A uniformed officer, one of my father's old subordinates. "Just a safety check, ma'am." Safety, I thought, from whom? My phone buzzed again. Ethan's voice low and precise. "Ma'am, they're setting the stage. Don't respond to any summons. Someone wants you silent permanently." Moments later, an encrypted image appeared. An internal memo. "Ardent Systems. Crisis PR Contract Protect Whistleblower, Nathan Vale. My breath left me. Near midnight, my mother arrived rain-soaked and exhausted. She set a paper bag of food on the counter. "He thinks he's protecting the family name," she whispered. I looked at her, voice steady. "He's destroying it." She nodded once. "He'd rather see you in prison than see himself as wrong." By morning, the television glowed again, Admiral Nathan Vale shaking hands with a congressman bathed in flashbulbs that mistook betrayal for patriotism. The cameras hadn't even cooled yet, and somewhere behind the applause, the next betrayal was already rehearsing its lines. If you felt that chill too, stay close, subscribe, and follow me into the next Silence Before the Storm. Accepting the title, Citizen Patriot of the Year. Admiral Nathan Vale smiled into the cameras. The applause crackled through the television speakers, hollow rehearsed. I switched off the screen and caught my reflection in the black glass. "So this," I whispered, "is what honor costs." A soft knock interrupted the silence. No footsteps followed, only an envelope, thin and precise, slipped through the door crack. Inside, a note in familiar handwriting. "Charleston. 2 weeks. We'll finish this right. EEG." I folded it once, tucked it into my jacket, and exhaled for the first time in months. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Rain carved the city into ghosts. Then my phone rang. No caller ID. Ethan's voice came through, low, wired tight. "Ma'am, the leak wasn't an accident. You're the target, not the enemy." "Then who is Ardent Systems? They're buying senators and airtime. You're the audit they can't afford." I'd survived desert fire and drone silence overseas. But this war, this one built from files and favors, felt colder. In Charleston, a banker leaned across his desk, whispering, "Your father withdrew $30,000 in cash, said it was for legal fees." The receipt bore the initials AS Industries LLC, Ardent Systems. The ink reeked of betrayal. He'd finally priced his pride. At a naval checkpoint, Ethan flipped open his laptop. "They've planted a ghost code in NATO's secure grid, cloned from your encryption. 2 weeks until activation. Long enough to bury me." He met my eyes. "Long enough to bury anyone who tells the truth." That night, my mother handed me a document, her hands trembling. He said it was for a documentary. I knew better. Her voice broke. "If you talk to him again, let the truth hurt him, not you." I filed my final report to the Department of Defense under an anonymous code. One line only: "Integrity is the last uniform we wear." Ethan's reply came seconds later. "Charleston confirmed. We move soon." By dawn, cameras flashed as my father gripped a microphone, voice steady. "I did what any true American would do. I told the truth." The crowd cheered. Behind him, Ardent's logo glowed faintly in red and silver. That night by the harbor, I stared at his old boat, Redemption. "You left more than a rope loose, Dad," I whispered. "You left the truth untied." Ethan appeared from the fog, handing me a flash drive. Proof direct transfers from Ardent. Driving home, a black SUV followed. The window lowered. A reporter smiled. "Stay quiet and we'll clear your name." I didn't stop walking. Then leak the truth. "Let's see who tells the better truth, Dad." Outside, a helicopter swept low over Charleston Harbor. The storm had come ashore. Inside, the Veterans Tribute Gala chandeliers blazed like a second sun, their light too flawless to be honest. I'd been requested to attend the Navy's polite word for summon to clear the record. Same marble, same stage, same cameras waiting like executioners in gold trim. Some stages repeat themselves until someone walks in carrying the truth. My father sat in the front row, absorbing the flash of photographers as if oxygen came from applause. He gripped the microphone. "My daughter may wear a uniform," he said evenly, "but I wear the truth." Laughter rippled. Applause followed. I stood motionless, the spotlight scorching my face. Then the déjà vu struck: 2 federal agents cutting through the crowd, badges raised. Flashbulbs burst like shrapnel. Humiliation tastes the same the second time unless you've already learned to swallow it. The lead agent lifted a warrant. Thud, thud, thud. Not footsteps. Formation. Too clean, too timed. The double doors swung wide. A line of SEALs entered dress uniforms black, and gleaming white gloves locked in unison. They moved as one body, deliberate and unshakable. At the front, Commander Ethan Graves. His voice cut through the hall like an order from another world. "Admiral Vale, we're here." Every head turned. The spotlight shifted, sliding off my father and finding me. For the first time in a year, I wasn't the accused. I was the evidence. Ethan held up a folder sealed in crimson wax. Operation Evergreen, authorized by the President. Admiral Vale's clearance extends to NATO's joint operations. Any allegations against Commander Adrianne Vale are hereby void. Gasps, murmurs, silence. One agent leaned to another. "Cancel it. She's covered." My father's hand trembled. His glass fell, scattering whiskey like spilled guilt. I stepped forward, voice steady. "You reported me for doing the job you taught me to love, Dad." He couldn't raise his head. I turned to the room. Tonight was meant to honor truth. Let's start there. The SEALs saluted. The flag behind us caught full light and the screens lit up with Ethan's final transmission. First came the recording, my exchange with the Forge reporter. His voice clear and cold as it played through the ballroom speakers, a confession to the setup. Then the document appeared on screen, the payment trail. Atlantic Forge, Admiral Nathan Vale. No one spoke. The applause never came. My father collapsed into his chair, smaller than I had ever seen him. When truth finally stands, no one claps. They just breathe. The night after the gala smelled of salt and whiskey. The band had gone. Only the hush of Charleston Harbor remained, a city pretending not to notice what had just come undone. Behind the hotel, my father sat alone on a stone bench, uniform coat draped beside him, staring at the black water. I walked toward him, not as a commander, not as an accused officer, but as his daughter. We had both served under flags. His was pride. Mine was duty. "They told me you were compromised," he rasped. "They said they had proof." "You wanted to believe them," I said quietly. "It made you feel noble again." His eyes lifted, rimmed red. "I just wanted to be right for once." "Being right," I said, "isn't the same as being good." For a long moment only the tide answered us. Then my mother stepped from the shadows, rain still in her hair. She laid a shaking hand on his shoulder. "You can still choose who you are tomorrow," she whispered. He broke under her touch. "I don't need an apology," I said softly. "I just need you to stop rewriting who I am." My phone vibrated. "Ethan Graves. Forge executives are in custody," he said. "Their chairman confessed. They used your father to reach you." The wind off the harbor was sharp, but I didn't feel it. I turned toward the glass doors and caught my reflection, steady, scarred free. Forgiveness isn't surrender. It's stepping out of someone else's sin. By dawn, Charleston's memorial parade wound along the seawall. Flags rippled in the pale light. My father stood at the podium, medals dulled by years. "I mistook attention for truth," he said. "And I hurt the person who carried my name further than I ever could." No one clapped. The silence was the deepest applause. Afterward, he found me. "You deserved a better father." "I got a better ending," I told him. "That's enough." I dropped an old photo into the harbor. Reckoning isn't punishment, it's the first honest page. I've carried names, ranks, and accusations, but the hardest thing to carry is silence. If you've walked through your own storm, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, tell me what kept you standing. Leave me your words below, because every story of courage deserves to be heard. And if my fight means something to you, stay with me. Subscribe, share your advice. Remind someone that truth isn't a medal, it's a choice. Sometimes justice isn't loud, it's the moment you decide to stop running from who you are.